Glad you could join me today. Have you ever felt like you've just got too much on your plate? Like you've said yes to too many things and you don't know which one to say no to? You don't know how to balance it all back out and you're just feeling completely overwhelmed. Everything you're doing is good. It's all purposeful, you feel like, but yet it just seems like it's too much. Well, I was reading a devotion by Blackaby the other day, and I thought I'd like to share with you some of the things and the thoughts that he had. He's starting here talking about Moses. You know, when Moses got the people across and he was trying to put everything together, he wound up being the judge, and everybody's lining up, asking him questions, and he seemed to be sitting there all day long, making decisions, figuring things out. And you know, that can just be stressful, can't it, on your mind, to constantly be making decisions all day long. Life and death decisions, maybe in some places where there was pettiness, probably two people fighting over who owned which cow or whatever was going on. But whatever was happening, it was wearing Moses out. And his father-in-law comes to him with a piece of advice in Exodus chapter 18 and verse 14. And he says, "And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, 'What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning until evening?' And Moses said to his father-in-law, 'Because the people come unto me to inquire of God, and when they have a matter, they come to me, and I judge between one and the other, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws.' And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, 'The thing that thou doest is not good.'" You know, Moses was trying hard, wasn't he? But yet his father-in-law comes with advice. And if you know the rest of the story, he tells him, divide this down, put some other people, delegate. He teaches him how to delegate and to make the burden lighter by only taking on the things that really came to him. It sort of created Moses as the Supreme Court and created all the other little courts as people would work their problems up the way. But let me read for you just a bit of what Blackaby said. He says, "In our zeal to please God and advance his kingdom, we Christians often take on responsibilities that God never intended us to have. One of the great challenges of the Christian life is determining what God does not want us to do. Sometimes our good intentions cause more harm than good." And that's what happens, isn't it? We take on everything. We never say no to anything. We always try to find space for everybody and everything that needs to be done. And then we wonder why we're not doing anything well and we are completely exhausted. You know, we haven't learned how to delegate, have we? Blackaby goes on to say, Moses was aware of the need for someone to settle disputes among the Israelites. Someone had to help these former slaves learn how to live together as the people of God. So Moses took it upon himself to meet this need. Long lines of unhappy people, hoping to have their cases heard, stood before Moses each day. And Moses spent day after day carrying the weight of his nation's problems on his shoulders. Don't you feel like that sometimes? Finally, his father-in-law, an outsider, witnessed what Moses was doing and challenged the wisdom of his actions. Moses was taking on more than he could handle. He was wearing himself out, trying to do what was impossible for one person to do. In doing this service alone, Moses was robbing others of the opportunity to serve the Lord. He was also doing a disservice to his people who otherwise could have had their issues resolved sooner. Did you see that? He was robbing people of the opportunity to serve. And you know, sometimes as leaders, we can do that. We can take on everything. We can micromanage until we're robbing people from the opportunity of serving the Lord. And we're actually doing them a disservice because they won't step in front of us. They won't take the lead because we're in the way. Here's what else he says. When you become aware of a need, do not automatically assume that God wants you to meet it. Isn't that an amazing thought? When you see a need, do not automatically assume that God wants you to meet it. The only reason to perform ministry is that God clearly tells you it is his will. That's amazing. To stop and think, okay, here's a need. I can see the need. Lord, do you want me to meet that? Is it really for me to meet, or am I to pray about it? Am I to point them to another source? What am I to do? If you're feeling overwhelmed by all you are doing, you're probably doing more than God has asked. You know, in Matthew it says, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, me, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls." God's not telling you to do everything, is he? He's telling you to come to him. But sometimes we do that. We take on everything that comes along. We miss the opportunity for ourselves to be an influencer for people. We miss the opportunity to help them to grow. We take things upon ourselves. We become grumpy and tired in ministry, and then our example is not what it needs to be. Blackaby says, prayerfully consider about the assignments you take on so that you don't rob yourself and others of God's best. Think about it. Think about what's on your plate. Look at your to-do list. Take off some of the things that don't need to be there. Enlist the help that you need. Delegate and find some rest for your soul. I'll see you next week.